We have not had a proper altcoin season since 2021. In today's video, I'll be talking about when we could potentially be getting that next altcoin season. We'll be going over the recent Pump Fund token launch, which is in less than 24 hours, and I'll be going over how I navigate this crypto market in terms of my trading portfolio and in terms of my spot portfolio. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Let's jump right into the video. As per usual, let's kick us off with the Bitcoin chart, and we can see here that we are just below $118,000. Now, Bitcoin looks like it wants to continue higher. Yes, there is liquidity to the upside. We cannot ignore that, but I want you to be cautious because almost the entire market is piling into longs now. And so, in my opinion, even if Bitcoin sees much higher upside, we will likely come back down at some point and liquidate some of those longs. As you can see here on the right, around $2 billion worth of cumulative short liquidation leverage. And on the left here, we have about $22 billion worth of cumulative long liquidation leverage. This is absolutely insane, so just a fair warning to be careful here. I know a lot of you want some of that upside price action in Bitcoin, and that's why I've always recommended having a strong spot portfolio in Bitcoin, but right now I would not be chasing this market. It is very, very easy for us to come back down, liquidate some longs before potentially going ahead and moving higher. So back to the Bitcoin chart here. Obviously, it's a clear breakout. We've been through it in yesterday's video. And so right here, we can see that we're just kind of chopping around at the 4-hour mark. Is it possible for Bitcoin to keep going up? Yes, of course. But with all of the longs piling into the market, I would recommend operating with a little bit of caution. Now, let's go over altcoin season because this is what you're here for. Are we finally going to get the crazy altcoin season? I've had a ton of messages in my DMs on Telegram asking me, hey, this altcoin pumped. This altcoin pumped. Should I be rushing to get in? Am I going to miss the altcoin season? What I want to show you here is, first of all, the total crypto market cap excluding Bitcoin. Now, we can see that we're getting a little bit of a breakout here, but what I want you to be really aware of is last cycle when we really got that pump, the Fed was not in quantitative tightening. And so we can see that this cycle, when we got a nice pump, we didn't even make it past the previous all-time high from last cycle. And so, as quantitative tightening continues to occur, it's not likely that this will just absolutely explode to the upside until we get a little bit of a change in monetary policy. That has been my stance. And to touch on this even further, let's look at Bitcoin dominance, because I know that some of you have been looking at the daily or even the 4-hour chart saying that this is super bullish and we're going to get an altcoin season. But notice how much I have to zoom in here to show you where Bitcoin dominance is at. Yes, this week we saw a little bit of a downtrend. Now, is this the start of altcoin season? I am not that convinced yet because, as we can see, we've had these drops in Bitcoin dominance before, and we are still here with no rate cuts and monetary policy is exactly the same. So why would Bitcoin dominance plummet from here? In my opinion, it is still more wise to have the majority of your crypto portfolio in Bitcoin, as I've been advocating on the channel at length. And so if I really zoom out here, going on the monthly chart, this is an extremely bullish chart and I would not fade it. Have we had some red moments? Yes, but ultimately my base case for this would be for us to continue to trickle on higher into this range between 66% and 70% Bitcoin dominance. And if I zoom in here, you can see that we got a little bit of rejection right at the 66% level, which is the level that I've been talking about on the channel for the past few months. This is also why my spot portfolio is in Bitcoin. So a lot of people have been accusing me of being a perma bear, but what I wanted to share with you in this video is exactly how I operate. Spot portfolio, trading portfolio. So I have my trading portfolio that I use to bet on Bitcoin going up or down, as well as trade altcoins. And for that, I do have my free signals group in my Telegram. However, I also have my spot crypto portfolio. And since the bear market bottom, most of my portfolio has been in Bitcoin. I have literally just been holding Bitcoin from $16,000 to $20,000 from accumulating at the bear market lows up until now. And actually, yesterday, I did sell some of my Bitcoin to try and have more of a cash position. So you need to understand that there's a split between the two, and I would never actually merge both portfolios together. On one side, you have capital allocated for trades. For example, when you trade cryptocurrencies, long, short, and you have this spot portfolio that you never actually touch until you think that the end of the bull market is here. The reason I do this now is because last cycle I got absolutely wrecked merging both of my portfolios together. And what happened was I was trading cross margin, I used altcoins and Bitcoin as collateral, and then all of a sudden, if you have a couple of unsuccessful trades, you end up losing some of your spot portfolio because of this. And so now I've promised myself that I will never merge the two because it allows me to operate in this market relatively stress-free. If some of my trades don't work out, I know that I have a massive spot portfolio sitting in Bitcoin as Bitcoin dominance continues to increase. And then if trades work out, fantastic. My trading portfolio continues to increase and I keep on holding on to my spot portfolio. I hope that resonates with you and it's something you can consider implementing. Now, speaking of my trading portfolio, what I wanted to show you here is that actually today in my signals group, we did enter a quick Bitcoin short, and you can see we got a solid 56% gain in a matter of minutes. Bitcoin looked a little bit weak, rounding off, but this doesn't mean that I'm just gonna stay in this short position forever. We secured some nice profits, and if you like to go in and out of trades relatively quickly, also we do have some swing trades here. You do have the first link in my description down below, which brings you directly to this signals group. It's completely free, and all I ask is that you sign up with one of my affiliate links to join. So now let's take a look at the total 3 minus USDT divided by Bitcoin. We covered this chart on the channel before, but it does seem like we're continuing to bleed lower. And so ultimately, with Bitcoin dominance continuing to increase and with this chart bleeding lower, to me it seems like altcoins are still not the play. I know that a lot of your favorite influencers will be saying, altcoin season is here, you don't want to miss it. But this is not the point. It's not the US dollar that you want to pay attention to. You want to pay attention to altcoins against Bitcoin, because ultimately, if Bitcoin outperforms the majority of altcoins, what are you doing in altcoins? Because you're taking on more risk for less return. And this has been the same exact message for me over the past few months. Bitcoin gives you the highest risk-adjusted returns, especially when monetary policy is as is and we're not getting any more rate cuts. So let's see what happens. Maybe when rate cuts start to come to fruition and monetary policy changes, that is when altcoin season can really start. And as a matter of fact, if we look at this chart, what I'm actually looking for here to consider dollar cost averaging into altcoins with some of my Bitcoin, it would be if we were to come back down to this level. We can see that historically, we tap into this level before having an aggressive move to the upside. And so, in my opinion, this would give you the best risk-adjusted returns for altcoins. That is, if you convert some of your Bitcoin into these altcoins. Now, in terms of US dollars, really, Bitcoin determines the rest of the market. So if Bitcoin goes ahead and pumps from here and makes it past $120,000, $125,000, of course, it will drag the rest of the altcoin market with it. But don't stress out, because if most of your portfolio is in Bitcoin, which I hope it is because I've been advocating for this on the channel for months, then you have nothing to worry about because you're getting the best risk-adjusted returns. Now, of course, there's going to be a couple of altcoins here and there that outperform Bitcoin, but if we take a look at this chart, it does tell you that the majority of the altcoin market continues to bleed against Bitcoin. And I don't think that we're going to have any kind of massive reversal until we touch at the bare minimum this level. At that point, I would say it's worth the risk to convert some of your Bitcoin into altcoins to chase those higher gains. Also, I wanted to go over what Benjamin Cowan has been talking about. The last 2 summers, alt Bitcoin pairs found some brief relief before heading lower into Q4. The larger bounce by alt Bitcoin pairs over the last few years did not occur until November. So this could potentially suggest that we come back down, maybe we trickle on up a little bit here, come back down, and then we get a bounce near the end of this year, which is when altcoins have a strong chance. Now, some of you may not follow this strategy. Maybe you want to chase gains in the altcoin market. But for me personally, I am sitting comfy in Bitcoin as my main spot position. And so if my content over the past few months prevented you from going crazy into altcoins, I am very happy about that. Mission accomplished, because look at this Bitcoin dominance uptrend. If most of your portfolio was in Bitcoin, you would likely see most of the gains that this market has to offer while taking on the least amount of risk. And this is always how you should assess your trading and your spot portfolio strategies. And on the topic of altcoin season, let's of course take a look at the altcoin season chart. And basically we are between Bitcoin season and altcoin season, but we only recently climbed. It has been Bitcoin season for quite some time. And you can see that this cycle, we had a brief period where altcoins really started to perform well, and then we came crashing right back down. And so Bitcoin dominance is the chart that you want to follow on this. This was actually the period right around here where Bitcoin dominance plummeted and all of your favorite influencers were telling you to sell all of your Bitcoin and go into altcoins to chase those gains. Now, I've spoken to a lot of you individually, and you have all got wrecked by jumping into altcoins way too early. As always, I will let you know when I start dollar cost averaging into altcoins, but right now, I still think that Bitcoin gives you the best risk-adjusted returns, which is why I am staying in Bitcoin. If you don't like that, no worries, dive into the altcoin market. At least I held you off until now, but I still think that Bitcoin dominance will likely continue to increase. Now, taking a look at the spot ETFs, we have to cover this because yesterday we literally saw over $1 billion in inflows. That is absolutely crazy. Crazy inflows across all Bitcoin spot ETFs, and it's basically the same thing for Ethereum. We got just under 400 million, which is a lot considering it's Ethereum. So what is going to happen next? Are we going to see a brief sell-off? Because typically when we get tons of inflows like this, we do have some kind of sell-off in the following days. And so let's see what happens today on Friday. I mean, Bitcoin did pump all the way to just below $119,000. So perhaps today is another positive inflow day, and maybe Monday will be red for the Bitcoin spot ETFs, perhaps the Ethereum spot ETFs. But let's see, there's no arguing with the fact that Bitcoin is in high demand. And so in my community, yes, we entered a quick short, took some profits on that short, and we move on to the next. Let's see what happens here directly with Bitcoin because it continues to pump, but please be cautious. Everyone has been piling into longs. Literally every single pullback that Bitcoin has had on the shorter time frames ended up getting bought up, and we got massive pumps. And so will this just continue? I am not so sure. I still think that we could come back down and liquidate a lot of those late, high leveraged, aggressive longs. So if you're in significant profits, it is not a bad idea to trim some off the top, as we always do within my community. Last thing I wanted to talk about, we have the Pump Fund token sale. Pump is going live in less than 24 hours. As a matter of fact, it is live in just under 17 hours. Now, right now, across most major centralized exchanges, it is trading within the pre-market area, and so you can trade this token. However, it hasn't officially launched, so it kind of just chops around as is, wrecking a lot of early traders. What I'm looking at for this project, as I've discussed before, is a massive pump at launch, and then we go ahead and try to short this token. Now, if you want to know exactly when I enter a short on this token to hopefully print and make some insane profits, you do have the first link in my description down below, which brings you directly to my community. That will be shared within my free signals group. So if you want to know, it's in that group. Now, this one is going to be a little bit trickier because they are launching at a pristine moment in the market. They honestly got lucky, and they couldn't have launched at a better time, with Bitcoin sitting just below $120,000, sitting pretty at all-time highs. And so we should be expecting a massive pump with this token. There might be the opportunity to try to long this token, make a ton of profits on the way up, and then go ahead and short this token back down to where it came from. And I honestly think that this is probably going to be one of the biggest token launches in crypto history. Again, if you want to know how I'm navigating, you do have the first link in my description down below. I'll be talking about this token specifically tomorrow. And that sums up today's video. Bitcoin continues to pump, making it almost to $119,000. However, please be careful if you're trying to long this, because way too many people are currently longing Bitcoin. I would be surprised if we don't get at least a little bit of a pullback, liquidating a lot of those aggressive longs as per the liquidation heat map that I showed you in today's video. We also have the Pump Fund token launch tomorrow, which should be a very, very exciting event. And of course, I also went over how I operate in this market, split between a spot portfolio that I just sit with, and of course, the trading aspect of things. Completely separated is what I would recommend. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.